Hey, it's Brad, and for this edition Space News, we're doing a bit of a mission update. We're going to talk about a few different telescopes, proposed projects, and space missions and what's ahead of them, or in the case, potentially, what's behind them. And starting off with a telescope called Sofia. Now, you may not have heard of Sofia, but it's a super cool mission that is different from everything else you may think of. And that's because Sofia is a large telescope. It's about 2 meters wide. So it's a good sized telescope mounted in the back of a Boeing 747. So NASA and the German space agency DLR have been operating this facility. And the idea is if you have a telescope in the back of a 747, you can fly it high into the sky. Now, obviously, it's not going into space, but this is looking at different colors of light we call the infrared. So kind of further past the type of light that we can see, almost kind of night vision-y type. And one of the big factors that determines what we can see is getting above certain layers of the atmosphere, in particular what we call water vapor. Now, not really important to most people in life, but in astronomers, you want to get above the layer where this water vapor is. So sometimes we can get really tall mountains that do this. Or in the case of Sofia, they say, hey, we'll just have a mobile mountain. And so they've mounted this telescope in the back of the 747 and fly it around the world and do observations from it. So instead of an airplane with passengers, it's a retrofitted Boeing airplane with the control center of the telescope, the astronomers on board, and they're operating it. And I have a number of friends who both work on this mission and have been guest observers, as we say, on it. Now, in sad news for it, though, it looks like NASA and DLR, the German space agency, are going to cut this mission. One of the downsides of it is it's quite expensive to operate, and as we have other satellite missions like James Webb planned, the future of it was always in doubt, and it appears in a very sad turn of events that NASA and DLR have made the very hard decision to not continue to fund this super innovative, super groundbreaking telescope. So unfortunately, it appears that we will no longer have this observatory visible and available to us, but the science of it will still live on. Now, in future potential mission news, what we call Planetary Science Decadal Plan. So this is a number of scientists focusing on planetary science exploration list what are the top priorities for the coming decade. What are the missions that we want to build? What are the places that we want to explore? And the top of this list were two really cool places to visit in our solar system. One is Enceladus. Now, Enceladus is one of the moons of Saturn. Now, we already have missions planned to places like Europa and Titan. Titan is the largest moon of Saturn. And previous data from decades ago made it seem that Titan potentially is an amazing place to look for life, that there is potential water on this moon, there's rivers and lakes. Now, most of it is methane and ammonia, but we think it's almost like a place to search for prototype or beginning or emerging life. Some of these moons of Jupiter and Saturn are the most interesting places to explore for life. This is the big goal of these systems. And as I said, Europa has a mission called the Europa Clipper, also planned, Europa being around Jupiter. It, we believe, has giant oceans underneath. One of the more recent moons that have been popular is Enceladus, a smaller moon of Saturn, but when Cassini, a probe that was in orbit around Saturn and some of its moons, looked at Enceladus, what it saw was some eruptions of essentially geysers. There was hydrogen and a bit of oxygen shooting out of this moon, really showing again that we think this moon has water underneath. So the fact that a lot of these moons have water, this is one of the key things that we think for when we're searching for life. So of course we want to go look for it there. We want to go explore these places. So the Decadal Plan said, yeah, we need a mission to go explore Enceladus. We want to explore Titan. We're already going to do that. We want to explore Europa. We're already going to do that. Those missions will be launched in the next decade or so. But what are we going to do the decade after it? Enceladus is a target. And one of the other places to explore is the 7th planet of our solar system, and that is called Uranus. Now, in fact, the name itself strikes a bit of discussion. I say Uranus. I'm an American and an astronomer, and we tend to say Uranus. It also helps because you can avoid the year 5 giggles of saying Uranus. In fact, I know lots of people, my wife, who's an Australian, says Uranus. In fact, I'd love to hear and see in the comments below, do you say Uranus? Or do you just go all out and say Uranus? Both are used, both are somewhat correct. It's easier to say Uranus and avoid all those, funny jokes that come with our 7th planet. It's the butt of all jokes. It's always made fun of. But in the decadal plan eyes, it is a very important place to explore. We've sent probes to lots of different planets in our solar system. There's always something at Mars. Lots to do with Venus and even Mercury. Jupiter has some, Saturn has some. But Uranus really only had the Voyager probes that went out past it. We actually haven't studied it more than that. So there's a lot of interest and understanding that we can gain from exploring Uranus. In fact, Uranus and Neptune are what we call ice giants. In fact, we do now know that they're a little bit different, both in terms of their makeup, their evolution, how they were made, their composition, when we compare it to Jupiter and Saturn. So studying these gives us a big clue as to those planets and also the similar ice giants we find in other solar systems around other stars. So it's going to definitely be a mission that is going to be planned and also made fun of with the jokes rolling right off the tongue. And finally, in updates from current missions in the works or almost ready, JWST, the James Webb Space Telescope. This is NASA's new telescope launched back in December, and it was an engineering marvel to get it to work. Now, for the number of the past months, they've been getting the telescope ready, getting all of the individual mirror segments, because the telescope itself is 6.5 meters wide, made up of a bunch of smaller mirrors. And they've been trying to get these mirrors perfectly aligned, working, focused, producing very crystal clear images. We saw the first image from this telescope out about a month or two, but the James Webb Space Telescope has multiple cameras, multiple instruments on it. All would need to be aligned and tested to make sure it's working. And that's exactly what's now happened. All of the cameras and instruments on the James Webb Space Telescope now have produced their own first images, have had that testing, have had that focus, have had that alignment. Now, it still has about another 2 months to go. Now that everything's kind of working, they got to calibrate every individual instrument, do a lot of testing to make sure it's working as planned, and then hopefully start seeing the amazing science from this new big space telescope coming in June or towards the middle of the year. So I hope you loved this update from space. Focus on a bit of the space missions operating and planned into the future. And if you want to keep up to date with more videos and help me and encourage me to keep making them because you love them so much, please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel and make sure to check out some of the other ones.